You're listening to Beyond Bizarre True Crime, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, Missing Persons, DNA ID, Zodiac Speaking, Scene of the Crime, and 3 Men and a Mystery. All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond Bizarre True Crime. I'm your host, Barry Marino, for this episode, Zack and Addie, Big Easy Bizarre. And I host the show Open Shudders, a creepy podcast, along with my co-hosts, Philip Landry, Drew Fontenot, and Shaughnessy Barker. Well, in this episode, I will be talking about a case that is beyond bizarre. It's a case of Zack Bowen and Addie Hall. Our story begins in that haunted city of New Orleans, Louisiana. On October 17th, 2006, a young man jumped to his death from the Omni Royal Orleans Hotel in the French Quarter. He was identified as 28-year-old Zack Bowen. In his pocket was a note that read, "This was not an accident. I took my own life to make up for the life I took. If you go to 826 North Rampart, you will find the remains of my girlfriend." Now, Zack grew up in California, and at the age of 17, he dropped out of school to go on a road trip with his dad that ended in New Orleans. He loved the city, he loved its devil-may-care attitude, and its lax ID checking for alcohol. You know, he was 17 years old, wasn't old enough to drink, but he liked the idea that people didn't really check IDs a lot. So he got a job serving dollar draft beer when he met an exotic dancer named Lana. Now, Lana was gorgeous, so he was instantly attracted to her. And they started a relationship, and she wound up pregnant before she discovered that Zack was underage. So they decided to do the right thing and get married. But unfortunately, marriage was not financially easy for such a young couple, and they wound up having another child. So he decided to join the army and was stationed in Iraq. Well, that didn't really work out for Zack so well either. He had a lot of post-traumatic stress. He saw a lot of things that were horrible. He wound up with a really strong case of PTSD. So he wound up kind of like not caring about what he would do. He was trying to do things to purposely get discharged. And he got discharged, and what he got was a general under honorable conditions. Now, usually in a case like that type of discharge, they don't really get the medical benefits that they need, and especially psychological benefits. So his post-traumatic stress went untreated. So he wound up coming back to New Orleans, and he started working in the service industry. And his PTSD caused the breakup of his marriage. He had changed when he came back. Lana said he wasn't the same devil-may-care Zack that she met, fell in love with, and married. So he wound up moving to the French Quarter, where he got a job as a bartender. And it was there that he met Addie Hall, also known as Addie. Now, Adrienne Mathis Hall was born on January 15th, 1976 in North Carolina. She was an artist, a costume designer, and a dancer who unfortunately had her own issues like bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder. You guys know what borderline personality disorder is. There have been several different movie characters that suffered from it. Probably the most famous being Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction, or Kathy Bates in Misery, Jessica Walter in a Clint Eastwood movie from the 70s, Play Misty for Me. And it's a disorder where people, they ruin relationships on purpose. But at first, Addie didn't really want to date Zack. She didn't really care for him too much. She even told one of her friends, "Oh, I just wish he would stop bothering me." And he used to leave little notes and give her little presents. And then eventually his charm and his sweetness won her over, and they became a couple. Okay, now we're going to do a little gumbo here, like we do here in New Orleans. We're going to take a big old handful of post-traumatic stress disorder. We're going to throw in bipolar. We're going to throw in borderline personality disorder and put it in a big old gumbo pot. Spice it with a little alcohol and cocaine, and what do you think you get? Ha! You're right. A big old hot mess. Now, soon after they met, Hurricane Katrina struck. Zack and Addie decided not to evacuate. For several months, they lived in this very bohemian lifestyle. Now, they would have a camp out with, campfires in front of their house. They'd find groceries, close down grocery stores that weren't open. They would go in and find stuff. And that was kind of dangerous back then, because even Addie was in there and she almost got raped by somebody that was hiding in there that was looking for a single woman. Addie was tough. She fought the guy off. But that's how they would get supplies and things that they need. And they became like darlings of the media during all this. You'll see pictures of them all over the internet. Them. They were rescuing little stray kittens. They would feed them and taking care of them. And they really loved this lifestyle. And there were several other people in the French Quarter that were doing this along with them. And they loved it. They loved the fame. They loved the freedom. They loved not having to go to work. Kind of more or less living off the land in the middle of a big city with no electricity. But the power is going to come back on. People start coming home. Their fame dwindled. And along with their fame, so did their relationship. They became the big old hot mess they were originally meant to be. Now, their relationship really deteriorated to a really, really toxic level. And their public rows were legend. It got to the point where cab drivers wouldn't drive them together anymore. They would drive them separately. Well, she had a lot of cab drivers that wouldn't drive her because she could be really mean and cruel, especially when she was drinking, but especially when they were together. And then if them, they could be working in the same bar, but they couldn't come in on each other's shifts because nobody wanted them together. They were getting barred from all the bars in the French Quarter. That's really bad when that starts happening. And more complications were added to their relationship when Zack was starting to explore his sexuality. Now, he got involved with a male real estate agent. He decided that he started to consider himself bisexual or even pansexual. That means that you're attracted to the person and not the gender. So you would sleep with a male, a female, a transgendered male, a transgendered female, any of them, anyone. As long as you like the person, you would get sexually involved with them. And Addie didn't like this. And he was in a motel room with his boyfriend. I know this sounds like gossip, and I heard this from several sources, including the book that I'm going to talk about later at the end of this episode. He was having a fling with this real estate agent, this guy, and he was in a hotel room with his boyfriend. And Addie found out where he was, and she was banging on the door, cussing him out, and they had to call security to sort of escort her off the premises of the hotel. Really, really bad situation. Of course, Zack nor the boyfriend would come out because they didn't know if she had a knife or a gun or what, because that Addie was a pepper, I'm going to tell you. So they finally broke up. This was the summer of 2006. Now, that fall, Addie had a big old fight with her landlady, who evicted her. She really didn't have money to move, but she did find a place she loved at 826 North Rampart. That's the address I mentioned in the beginning of the show. She loved this apartment, but there was a problem there. She didn't have the money for the rent, the deposit. She needed all kinds of items like curtains, sheets, towels, kitchen items, all the stuff she had. None of it was really any good. Probably a lot of it was really messed up from the storm. She didn't know what to do, so she found out that Zack had a few bucks. I don't know how he got it, if it was from the military or for FEMA or something, but somehow or another he came in to a few $1,000. Not a big amount, but enough to help Addie for what she needed. Now, she went to him, and she told him she loved him, and she wanted him to move in, and it was this great new apartment she found, and he bought it. He bought the whole thing and paid for the deposit and bought sheets and blankets, and she was telling him, she was really laying it on him. She was telling him his kids could visit, and that, they were going to have, she was going to be really, really nice to the kids. She never was before. She never even spoke to him. His children, whenever they came to visit him, he used to take them to Le Richelieu Hotel to go swimming in the pool. The manager there liked him because he was a bicycle delivery guy, and that's where they used to order their lunch. And they liked him, and they let him take his kids to the pool, let him go swimming with the kids. And so they got the apartment, they moved in, and Addie was really becoming her nasty self again. She was being real abusive towards him. And when the kids would visit, she would lock herself in her bedroom and wouldn't talk to him. When she had promised that she was going to go to the zoo with him and have all kinds of fun and go swimming with him and everything, she was getting to be like a real, I don't want to cuss on this. Eventually, she got tired of it and went behind his back and talked to the landlord. Now, the landlord, she told the landlord that Zack was moving out, even though he paid for everything, and she had his name taken off the lease. So one night Zack comes home, and she has all his bags packed. And he says, "What's this?" She says, "Oh, you moving out." He says, "What are you talking about? I'm moving out. This is my apartment too." She goes, "Not anymore, it's not." And she showed him the new lease with just her name on it. Now, he really got kind of pissed off, and they started fighting. And the fight unfortunately ended with Addie getting strangled to death. Now Zack is in the apartment, and only with Addie's corpse. And I don't know what happens, if his mental illness kicked in or what, but he decides to live with the corpse for like a week. To having sex with her, bathe in it. And he did this for like a week. And he would go to work and come home, and she'd be there dead. And he pretended she was alive. And I'll tell you how we know all this at the end of the episode. Addie starts to, let's say, decompose. She starts to smell. And Zack doesn't know what to do now. He knows he can't keep her there. He knows that some people are going to smell the decomp, and they're going to send the police. So he decides to dismember the body in the bathtub and cook it. And he put her in he tried to cook her down, tried to cremate her, but household appliances don't cremate a human body. So Zack didn't know what to do, and it was at that point he decided he was going to kill himself. So what he did is he spent the next few days just partying away any money that he had. He was going to strip clubs and tipping strippers. He was picking up both male and female. And he was drinking. He was doing cocaine. He was if he was going to die, he was going to go with a bang. So he finally goes on the night of October 17th. He goes to the Omni Royal Orleans Hotel and orders a drink by the pool. He sips on his drink for a little while, and he goes and walks towards the edge, and then comes back and sips on his drink some more. The bartender confirmed this, saw all this. And then all of a sudden, the bartender, I guess he wasn't looking, and he saw Zack's drink, and so Zack was gone, figured that he left, took the drink, cleaned the glass and everything. And then it was some people who found him. He had jumped from the roof of the Omni Royal Orleans onto a neighboring roof, which is about 5 stories, and they killed him instantly. That's when the police were called. They examined his body. They found a note. They telling them to go to 826 North Rampart. Now, they go there, and the apartment is cold. He has the air conditioning way down, probably trying to slow down the decomp. They look, and he has things spray painted all over the wall. "I'm a failure. I loved her." And he goes look inside, and he spray painted an arrow to the stove, which had like two big soup pots on it. And when they opened one of them, they found Addie's head. They opened the second one, they find her feet and her hands. In the oven, they find her arms and her legs. They go into the refrigerator, and there was something wrapped in a black plastic garbage bag, turned out to be Addie's torso. After that, they got her remains. He had another arrow pointing towards the diary. In the diary, he tells the whole story. The story about how she stole the apartment from him. The story about how it ended. They were arguing and he strangled her. He didn't really mean to kill her. He didn't really want to kill her. And how he tried to get rid of the body but couldn't. And when they did the autopsy of him, a lot of people suspected cannibalism because he cooked her. But they found no human remains. He hadn't digested any human remains. But they did find some like onions and carrots and all chopped up like he was making a stew. That could have been for some dinner he was making for himself. Now, our story doesn't end here. Our story has a little paranormal twist to it. Zack's ghost has been seen inside the Omni Royal Orleans Hotel. Several people have seen him in the bathroom. Some people have seen him in the hallways. Some people have even seen him in the bar. And they'll be talking to this man, and then all of a sudden he's gone. So I was a ghost tour guide about 5 years ago, and I had a tour. I used to tell the Zack and Addie story. It was one of the stories on the ghost tour. And one of my clients asked me, what did Zack and Addie look like? And I used to carry a picture of them on my phone. When I showed the man the picture, his face turned white as a sheet. And I said, what's wrong? He says, well, I saw this guy. I said, where? He says, at my hotel. I said, well, were you staying at the Omni Royal Orleans? He said, yeah. I said, where was he? He said, he was in the hallway right outside my room, and he was standing there, and he was crying. He says, and I see this poor guy crying, and I'm thinking, oh, man, can I help you? And he kind of brushes me away and says, get out of here. And I said, well, like, F you. I'm just trying to help you, So I said, well, you sure this is the same guy that's in this picture? He said, I'm so sure. And I know he was wearing the same clothes he is in that picture. Now, Addie is also allegedly haunting the building where she was murdered. As a matter of fact, there's a tour company right now that has a museum where you can actually visit the apartment. But before these people took over, this apartment, ironically, was over Princess Miriam's voodoo shop. And Princess Miriam had nothing to do with this. Some people are trying to say that she, because it was a voodoo shop, that Zack was possessed by the devil or some kind of nonsense like that. None of that is true. Princess Miriam actually tried to get rid of Addie's spirit, and her spirit is too angry. You can't get rid of it. So I have another friend that cleans apartments. She didn't know it was a Zack and Addie apartment. She was given this place to clean. She says when she went in there, she says it was a hot summer day, and there wasn't any air conditioning running or anything, and the place was cold as ice. You couldn't even, she said, it was like you needed a blanket or a sweater. And she said she started getting sick of her stomach, and she couldn't finish. She couldn't finish the job. She had to go home, and when she was home, she was in bed for 3 days. She couldn't even get out of bed. She was so sick. I had a friend that was, actually, I used to be one of the co-hosts of Open Shudders, and he's done some ghost, he's a ghost hunter, and he has some audio of what pretty much sounds like Zack's voice saying, I am Zack, I am a loser, and things like that. So it's also, he's also been seen in this building too. So anyway, Zack and Addie are still earthbound. But hopefully they never get together again, because it would be like Hurricane Katrina all over again. Now, that story still doesn't end here. There's this weird postscript to this story. One of my main sources from this is a book called Shake the Devil Off, written by Ethan Brown, who happens to, he and I became friendly when I read the book, and I found out that he was here in New Orleans, and I bought the book, and I went to some of his book signings. So I went to one book signing that was the Borders bookstore that was in the Garden District, which is no longer there now. It's a Fresh Market. It's a farmer funeral home. But I met a lady there. She had 2 small children. And she was good. She was a good friend. About 2 years later, after this, a young woman named Jaren Lockhart. She was a Bourbon Street stripper at Rick's Cabaret. And her torso washed up on Biloxi Beach. And they knew she was when they got through DNA, they identified her. And they found out she was a dancer at Rick's Cabaret. And Rick's Cabaret has security cameras. So they looked to see who were the last people she left with, or if she was talking to anybody. And she left with this couple. Turned out she went home with the couple. Some kind of problems happened, and she was murdered and dismembered by this couple. Now, the woman in the couple, her name was Margaret Sanchez. She was Addie's best friend and the lady I met at the book signing. Now, how is that for bizarre? Well, thanks again for joining me. And sorry that none of my co-hosts could be here with me. And I hope you will listen to me and my co-hosts, Philip Landry, Drew Fontenot, and Shaughnessy Barker on our show, Open Shudders, a creepy podcast. We can be found on Apple, Spotify, Anchor, Castbox, Podbean, and many more. Just about anywhere where you can find a podcast, you can find Open Shudders. Our latest episode of Open Shudders deals with Daniel Wozniak, the community actor that killed his best friend and another friend to try to steal his money. It's a pretty bizarre case, and that's the one that's currently running. So be sure to check out the next episode of Beyond Bizarre True Crime, which will be hosted by Bernadette from Murderific Podcast. Oh, I can't wait to hear that one myself. Thank you. Vampires, ghosts, crazed killers, werewolves. Open Shudders goes to the movies. Barry Marino and Philip Landry will discuss some of the most horrifying films Hollywood has to offer. Open Shudders Goes to the Movies is available on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Google, and anywhere podcasts can be heard. Enjoy the view from the silver screen, but don't make it your final credit.
Beyond Bizarre True Crime is produced by Mike Morford and Jess Betancourt for AbJack Entertainment, with music by Connor Betancourt. If you enjoy this podcast, make sure to subscribe wherever you are listening now, and please take a moment to rate and review the show. You can find Beyond Bizarre True Crime on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram with the handle @BeyondBizarreTC. You can also find us on Facebook by searching for Beyond Bizarre True Crime Podcast. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests on Beyond Bizarre True Crime do not necessarily represent those of the show's creators, producers, or sponsors. Be sure to tune in on Saturdays for all new episodes of Beyond Bizarre True Crime.